Have you experienced the scenario? You're watching a series and something unfamiliar comes up. You Google it right away. The next day you're watching the series, the same thing comes up again, but you really can't remember what the answer of Google was, and you Google it again. How many times did that happen to you? I assume a bunch of times. Don't worry, it's not only you. Rather, it's a psychological phenomenon. It is so easy to Google it that we may find ourselves repeatedly looking up the same information, instead of committing it to memory. Let's look at this from a scientific perspective. In 2011, Sparrow, Liu, and Wagner conducted 4 experiments to prove the theory that online access to search engines and databases has become an external memory source for us. Furthermore, the study aimed to find out whether we think of the search term itself or immediately of the way to find it out online. Moreover, the research then tested whether, once information has been accessed, the internal encoding of the subject is increased for where the information is to be found rather than for the information itself. In the first experiment, the subjects were asked easy or hard yes or no trivia questions and then had to complete a modified Stroop task to test reaction time to matched computer and non-computer terms like Google versus Adidas. A Stroop task is a task where words are written in blue or red color, and they were asked to identify the color of the word. The researchers found that computer terms were more accessible to the subjects after hard trivia questions. It seems that when we are faced with a gap in our knowledge, we are primed to turn to the computer to rectify the situation. Although the concept of knowledge in general seems to prime the thoughts of computers, even when answers are known, not knowing the answer to general knowledge questions primes the need to search for the answer. In the second experiment, the subjects were split into 2 different groups and had to read 40 memorable trivia statements of the type that one would look up online. For example, an ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain. And of the type that might be remembered generally, but not in specific detail, like the space shuttle Columbia disintegrated during re-entry over Texas in February 2003. Then the subject had to type them into the computer to ensure attention and memory. One group thought the computer would save what was typed. The other group thought it would be erased afterwards. In addition, half of the participants in each of the saved and erased conditions were asked explicitly to try to remember the information. After the reading and typing task, subjects wrote down as many of the statements they could remember. The experiment showed that those who believed that the computer erased their entries had the best recall. Subjects apparently did not make the effort to remember when they thought they could look up the information later. Because search engines are continually available to us, we may often be in a state of not feeling we need to encode the information internally. When we need it, we will look it up. The main effect of the instruction to explicitly remember or not was not significant. Subjects were more affected by the cue that information would or would not be available to them later, regardless of whether they thought they would be tested on it. In experiment 3, the subjects were split into 3 different groups and again had to read and write trivia statements. For 1/3 of the questions, subjects were shown your entry has been saved. For another 1/3 of the questions, subjects were shown your entry has been saved into the folder X. For the final 1/3 of the question, participants were shown your entry has been erased. Afterwards, participants were given a recognition task, where they were shown 30 statements and had to decide if these statements matched the ones they had seen. Subjects had the best memory for the statements they thought had been erased. Subjects were also asked whether the statement had been saved and where it had been saved. In this instance, subjects better recalled these statements were erased than which were saved or which folder it was saved into. This result is a reminder of the experience of remembering something you have read online that you would like to see again or share, but no longer remembering where you saw it and what steps you took to find it in the first place. Or even knowing that a file is saved onto your hard drive, but having to use the search feature to find it. Experiment 4 was conducted to see if people would recall where to find information more than the information itself. All subjects expected trivia statements that they had to read and then type to be saved to a specific folder. The subjects then had to write down all the trivia statements that they remembered, followed by having to determine where the information had been saved. The results showed that the subjects had better recall for which folder the trivia statement had been saved to than memory for the actual trivia statement themselves. The result of the 4 experiments showed that when faced with difficult questions, people are primed to think about computers, and that when people expect to have future access to information, they have lower rates of recall of the information itself and enhanced recall instead of where to access it. The internet has become a primary form of external or transactive memory, where information is stored collectively outside ourselves. This effect is called the Google effect, or digital amnesia. We tend to forget information that can be easily found online by using internet search engines. So what can you extract from this experiment? Imagine you are visiting a museum with all these wonderful artworks. Of course, you take a lot of pictures, and the next day a friend asks you to tell him about your experience and the names of the artworks you've seen. I guess this is one of these moments when you grab your phone and search for the artworks' names instead of remembering. Isn't it sad that just in such situations, you didn't have the intention to anchor the information in your memory to remember the beautiful moments in your life, but also to honor the artist whose work you stared at for a whole day and found so fascinating? A study conducted by Henkel faces this situation and suggests that we absorb less of what we experience through photographs than what we experience through observation. We usually take photos to post them on social media to share the moments in life with the world. However, we need to be aware that we sacrifice our own experience by doing this. Having life experiences through the lens of a camera might decrease the quality of those life experiences, because we aren't really absorbing them. It's the same effect we've seen in the other experiments. We rely on the digital world, which enhances our memories, but aren't aware of the consequences that it might have for us and our lives. So, next time decide wisely. If this is either information or experience you want to absorb fully, or something you can use the internet or your smartphone camera to split the burden of encoding and sorting information. We are human who can decide which type of memory we want to use. The transactive memory, called Google, or our own memory, which we don't share with everybody and enables us to have deep emotions. Be effective in prioritizing information and use both tools wisely. For the introduction problem of not remembering what you've just looked up after Googling it, try to activate your memory by writing it down, summarizing it, or translating it into your own words. Furthermore, before you Google it, give yourself a bit of time and try to remember it. For further tips to encode information in your long-term memory, click on this video. If you like, use the transactive memory and share your thoughts in the comments below and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and I hope to see you in the next video.